Yeah, I feel like everyone is mad about this patch. And I don't know, I kind of see both sides. I kind of feel like a lot of it is justified. I feel like a lot of it is kind of overreacting and whining, kind of jumping to conclusions or just, I'm gonna quit. That's it. This isn't even worth my time anymore. It's like a free, really good game still. It's like, I get it, because a lot of the changes they're in a weird direction. So, like, things definitely needed to be nerfed from the last league. But the tricky thing is about Path of Exile, and this problem exists in POE1, and I think it's even more extreme in POE1. So the things that people are complaining about here are in POE1, but they kind of can be mitigated because there's more ways to build in that game. Whereas the problem here, I think for me with these changes, the problem that I see the most, I don't know about that other people are complaining about campaign power. The problem I see the most is a lot of our ascendancies got hit, and a lot of nodes on the tree got hit pretty hard, to the point where they almost don't even feel strong at all. And some ascendancy nodes right now don't even feel like they're an upgrade, and a lot of people have been saying that even before this patch. Like, I think stat stacking got nerfed, and the items being nerfed I think made sense, but maybe Gemling could have escaped a nerf. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe Gemling's just too fundamentally OP. You know, double stats. But now it's double stats, you have 20% less stats, so it's like, I don't know, but it's not even as good as double stats, is it? Because you get double stat bonuses, but anything that's counting your stat, I don't know how that actually works. I didn't play Gemling much. But for instance, with Infernalist, what I played a bit more, the changes to Infernalist I feel like are, no pun intended, infuriating. It's the changes to Infernalist are really, I think, kind of disappointing. For one, they randomly buffed the crit node to 50% more crit. I don't know if they nerfed crit nodes on the tree so that's why they did that maybe. I don't know if they did. But that was already like a very good node in general. And some of the other things they did, like the minion dog nerf, the Infernal Hellhound or whatever, you just don't get any DR. It used to be you get one free minion. The minion takes 20% of damage for you, so while it was alive, essentially you have 20% DR. Pretty simple, really good node. I could see nerfing it, right? I could see nerfing it, but just straight up removing the DR. Oh, and here's the fucking problem with my game is my assets don't load. It still has this problem. God damn it. I don't know what's wrong with this is beside the point, but I think I need to alt tab back in. Right, the Infernal Hellhound went from 20% DR while it's up to just you get one kind of okay minion for a whole ascendancy node. I'm sorry, but that's just not exciting. Like, maybe it's a POE1 context thing there, but I think nobody is going to click that and feel excited and be like, yes. You know, unless they buffed the Hellhound a ton, which I didn't see that in the patch notes. then they left the health scaling alone for Infernalist. And then they removed the low life demon build and they switched it around. So normally in demon form, so the demon form changes I think are the ones that encapsulate my feelings on how they changed the game this patch in general. So it was an acceptable nerf, right? The demon form, basically, if you don't know, it used to take, you would go into demon form and you'd take a percentage of your maximum life every second and you'd get like 1 stack of demon flame or whatever the fuck it's called. And then every stack you get, you take more damage percentage per second, and also you deal more damage. And you could flap your wings, and instead of a dodge roll, you'd go really far. So how they nerfed it was they made the damage flat, because the way around it, or the way that you used to be able to get around it so you could have kind of permanent demon form up almost, is you get a bunch of health regen, or as much as you can get in this game, still not that much, and then you reduce your maximum life, so you basically become super glass cannon, and your life's draining as a percentage of your max, but you have, you know, more and more regen that's flat. So basically you can be in demon form for almost forever. And then you'd be able to, once you waited around enough and you got enough stacks, you could just one-shot anything, which I can see why they would nerf that, but at the same time, it should have been nerfed, but it was a build that you had to jump through a bunch of hoops, so you had to scale your health down below baseline with a bunch of methods, which is interesting. So you're glass cannon, so you have to sacrifice essentially all of your defense for this idea, and demon form takes away your weapon for some reason, so you basically don't get a weapon slot. It makes it so if you have a weapon equipped, its stats do not count when you go into demon form for some reason. So you lose your weapon slot and you become completely glass cannon, right? So that you can basically, if you ramp up in a map long enough, you can one-shot anything. To me, of all the builds that were broken, this one had so many trade-offs for it that I wouldn't say it's reasonable. I still think it needed to be changed. But the way they change it, the nail in the coffin for me is that they switch it around. So now your demon forms uncapped after 4 nodes, and they give you, it used to be you use 2 of your ascendancy points and it was uncapped then, and then the point after would cap it at 10, which, to be fair, that didn't make sense either. So I think it definitely needed changing, but they just flipped them around so that the second node just uncaps it and that's all it does. I think a healthier way to change demon form would have been to make it so that it was harder to get, you know, these endless kind of stacks of it. But I could see, I don't know, I think the low life angle was interesting. I think you could keep it percent life damage, but then just make it ramp kind of faster. And then I think, I don't know, I think that maybe that's a little bit more fair. Because I think the low life angle of being this glass cannon demon did fit the fantasy pretty well. You're super fragile, you're super fast, and if you ramp up enough, you do insane damage. I think the concept of that was really cool, and the build where people were going dual Ming's Heart, very interesting and a cool angle. I wish that could have stayed around, but no, they made it flat, and they made it so essentially you just can't do that. Fine. Even that change, I don't really agree with removing the low life angle entirely, but okay, fine. You want to make the damage flat and scale up, and then people have to scale more health to get a longer demon form. That could make sense, even though there's not really life scaling in Path of Exile 2 right now, not much of it. So maybe in the future that'll be cool. But then the change that kind of like it pushes me over the edge where I feel like this is just a kick in the teeth. Like you just made the thing not fun anymore for no reason. They nerfed the demon dodge roll. The demon dodge roll, it would flap its wings and you'd go from like right here to like maybe right here, almost like half a screen. It was really good. And it was something unique to the Infernalist, where it's like, if you go demon, this low life thing, you're super mobile but glass cannon, and it made sense. I don't even know how much they nerfed it. To me, I don't even care. It's about the spirit of the change. To me, it's just, why would you nerf something that's like, it's not necessarily even OP? Because, right, you with the new demon form, you're gonna run out of time in it, so it's not permanent. And other classes were faster through other methods. So it's, to me, it was a fun class fantasy part of the node. Maybe they barely nerfed it, maybe it doesn't even matter, but I have a feeling if that was on the patch notes, it's probably really nerfed. But I don't understand the logic of taking something that was purely fun and probably not like worryingly broken or something like that, unless you're looking at it from the context of like maybe speed running. I don't know, which, you know, it's not like this game is made to for only speedrunners. Like, who cares? So you just, it's like you take the unreasonable thing maybe down to a reasonable level here, but then you're like, and also I'm taking away your lollipop. And it's like, what the fuck? Hey, I liked that. That's like half the reason why I liked this thing, is it came with a free lollipop. You know, the demon form came with this free mobility for some reason. That was cool. We're taking that away. Fuck you. And it's just like, damn it. We liked that. That was cool. You know what I mean? That's the kind of the vibe I get from some of these changes. They almost give off like battle state games. If you play Tarkov, you know what I'm talking about. Battle state games, the way they balance the devs of Tarkov is they basically watch what the players do, and then the season after it, or in that game the wipe after it, they nerf every single thing that players were doing pretty much, and then they buff some other stuff that they weren't doing. So they look at the meta and they nerf everything that people liked. But if you lean too far into that type of changes, sometimes you end up nerfing things that just people liked because they were cool and because they were fun. And for instance, in that game, everybody loved this one scope, or it was like a red dot site called the POE2. You can look up pictures of it, but it used to be so clean of a site. Everybody's favorite. It used to cost like 100K on the market. And then they did a change where for some reason they were like, nah, POE2 sucks now. And it's just a gigantic blurry mess and nobody wants to use it. And it's like, okay, come on. Like, there's no way that a red dot site is like OP. It's just people like this one because it's the clearest and the cleanest looking one that you can see really well through. And you took it and just ruined it. Why? Why would you do that? And to me, these changes, some of them feel a little bit that way. Where it's like, we got a lot taken away and we didn't get that much in return. You know? I feel like a good way to change demon form, you could nerf the demon form however you want. But I think it was weird from the start that it takes away your weapon slot. So just right there, maybe nerf the numbers on demon form and make it, You could even make it dynamic with your weapon. You could make it multiply your weapon's effectiveness per demon stack or something like that. That would be interesting. Something like that where it's like, I think at the very least, don't make it disable your weapon slot and then maybe nerf the stats, or make Demon Form actually just multiply the effectiveness of your weapon stats. Maybe that would be broken, but it's the concept of losing life and gaining multiplicative damage every second, ramping infinitely. Hey, you guys put this in the game. That's the idea. Theoretically, if you're doing a Demon Form build, you should be able to one-shot something, right? That's kind of the idea of the thing. And there's so little in the way of health regen in this game and things like that, and defensives, that I wonder how much you can really push it without finding some weird edge case where you're abusing something. And that's the problem that POE1 has, where POE1 basically exists in this state where if you try to just log in and you're like, I'm going to use Contagion and Essence Drain, right? And you don't try to scale it through some other obscure means that are like dynamic, dependent on some other thing that you're abusing, then your character is going to suck. Right, the only way to make a skill good, unless it's like the most broken skill in the game, in that game, is, well, it's kind of similar to last league, right? The way people were scaling a spell, if the spell wasn't broken, was Archmage, which is like, so you're scaling it through some other dimension, through mana and intelligence. And I think, unfortunately right now, it feels like things that should be kind of supplementary or edge case are the only way to actually make your build strong. So like the Hand of Wisdom and Action, or whatever the fuck it's called, whole build's just completely defined by that, right? It's pretty much all of your damage on some of those stat stacking builds, which I think that's fine. But the problem lies when it seems hard to make a reasonable normal build unless you have some angle like that. And that's where POE1 is. And I think nerfs like these, where they hit everything, I think they just lead to people looking for those broken interactions more. You know, those temporalis type builds, where you're just kind of hunting for this one, you know, probably unintended interaction, and then once you have it, your character's insane. But then if you try to do a normal build where you're like, hey, if I go around the tree and I just get Contagion and Essence Drain, and I type in Chaos, and I just go around the tree and I collect all the Chaos damage nodes, and I have like a reasonable set of items, and I have a reasonable all that. In POE1, and I think in POE2, to a lesser degree, your build sucks. But I think these are the kind of changes that got POE1 to that state, where basically you can't play anything without these almost like secondary measures of scaling. It's like, oh, well, actually, my ability scales on my health, and my health is scaling on this, and then that is scaling on this other, my chest piece, right? There's so many builds like that, and those are fun, but they shouldn't be the only way to make a character. I think you should be able to log in, and you should be able to, they should try to raise the floor, if anything. You need to be able to, if you have decent gear and have just, you know, chaos skills that make sense, or minion skills that make sense. Some skills and some things do work this way, but some don't, where you're like, I want to go, I don't know, like if you wanted to go Spark last league, it was really good. But what if you wanted to go Spark, but you didn't want to go Mana Stacker, right? Could you make it a good build? I don't I kind of doubt it. Like, I don't know how you're going to scale it. I guess maybe a ton of gem levels. And I think part of the reason why it's going to be this way is this game just has less avenues of customization because it's just far newer. But I do think some of these changes go a little bit too far where it feels like they're taking away things that they don't need to take away and nerfing things that maybe. I think a lot of the ascendancies in POE2 already are not interesting and don't feel good. Some of them are cool. They usually have like 1 or 2 really good nodes. Like Infernalist, I was trying to do everything but minions with Infernalist. I was throwing the kitchen sink at this thing. I built so many different builds. I tried to do Ignite. It felt like it didn't make sense. To be fair, I wasn't looking up other people's ideas, so they could have just... my ideas could have just been bad. I ended up on, you know, some crit spell triggering abomination that was decent, but I would kill myself with the node that turns your mana into overheat and it hurts you. And I ended up with, I think, like 800 crit multi or something, which was cool. But I think, you know, as far as the nodes I had on that ascendancy, the whole left side of the Infernalist ascendancy is basically not interesting. Maybe it's decently strong, but essentially, if you don't know what it is, you take one kind of boring defensive node that says you take X amount of damage as fire or physical damage as chaos, which is good. Damage shift is good. But then you have 3 other nodes where you basically trade a portion of your life for spirit, mana, or energy shield at kind of not that good of rates, to be honest. The spirit one was OP, they nerfed it. Whatever, right? It's like fine. But because there's no good way to scale life in this game, and they took away kind of double dipping that existed in POE1, which sure maybe shouldn't have existed. Because of that, I feel like those nodes become not cool. So you just have like your normal base life with whatever you get off your gear, and then you're like, yeah, 25% of that is now spirits. It's just not interesting, right? I feel like that only becomes interesting when you get an item that actually lets you scale your health in a fun way, where you can get some broken, like I have 10k health, you know? And the trick, I suppose, is making that hard to achieve, but making the progression to get there fun. So these suggestions or these gripes about the game, I think the reason why these gripes about the game exist is because these problems are really actually pretty tricky to solve. And I don't envy GGG, essentially. I think they've put themselves in a little bit of almost an impossible position with their goal of making the combat more, what was the word that they use? Basically, they wanted the combat to be meaningful. They wanted it to matter, which I think they achieved to some degree. But to be fair, comparing that to POE1 is not, like, the combat is not that meaningful. I made a video a while ago talking about basically how if you have binary difficulty in a game, especially through defensive scaling, then it kind of dissolves a sense of meaningful combat. And I think that is true for essentially most forms of character progression, if the scope of character progression is too high, then whatever the thing that you're progressing in, if you're able to push it past a certain extent, then it doesn't matter anymore and the game becomes binary. So if you can one-shot everything, your damage, like getting more doesn't matter, and combat becomes binary, you just kind of one-shot stuff. Or something counters you maybe and you don't one-shot it. So now you're just running around the world and you're like blowing everything up, and then occasionally something will be indestructible and you're like, or maybe it'll take 2 hits, you know. And if you apply that to defenses, then that would look like you basically are indestructible again until something one-shots you. And that's why they limited regen in a lot of these things, is because they knew that, right? If you have 10,000 regen and 2,000 health, then the only way that you can functionally die is by something turning your regen off, and then you're gonna die like that, or if something one hits you. So that's going to create probably not the funnest experience. And I think it's really hard to get a sweet middle ground where you can have a really high scope of character progression for these different kinds of stats and ideas without eroding the kind of concept of the gameplay. It's super hard to get that tuning, and I definitely do not envy them, right? So people getting mad at them and complain, this is the worst game ever. Like, I don't agree with that. I agree this patches feels a little rough. It feels a little bit like they maybe over nerfed some things or took away things that maybe didn't need to be taken away. Like, what was it? I forget what it's called, but it's a spirit gem that says it's basically like a shitty cast when damage taken for your energy shield. It's like something barrier. Basically, you can trigger the spell in it with no spell cast speed, right? If you take enough damage to your energy shield. And last patch, my idea, once I got my build fully online, my concept was I'll get the Infernal Flame, which is once you fill your mana bar all the way up by casting, it hits you, right, with fire damage, boom. And my idea was I wanted to tune it so that it would do enough damage to my energy shield so that I'd be able to always cast whatever was in the invocation barrier, whatever it's called, right? So once I fill this up, boom, it hits me, and then I can cast my invocation. And then if you tuned it super well, it would be like a POE1 build, where then you cast your invocation, whatever triggers off that, and it fills up your mana bar all the way again. Boom, hits you, triggers another one, but you need insane ES regen in it, and I don't know if you can get that in this game. Right, that's the idea. The idea is like this fun, like self-hit, you know, let's try to trigger these things. And I log into the game, and it was already really hard to do that. I don't know if you actually could. But they took that gem, and they gave it the line, it is only affected, or it only counts basically when enemies hit you. And I'm just like, you just took the whole point of the gem. Every person who read this, right, the only fantasy they had in their mind when they read this gem was, if I can somehow hit myself enough times and turn this into like a casting engine, that'd be sick, right? And taking any opportunity for that away, I think, is purely a mistake. I think it just is, right? Because sure, the trigger builds were out of hand and it was too easy to maybe go crazy with them, with the fire flower and whatnot. But does that mean that it shouldn't exist at all? I think everybody, like, triggering and making a little combo of sequential triggers and trigger loops is something that existed in POE1 forever. And I think that when people find them in this game, I don't think that you should just rip them out root and stem. I think that they should be always hard to attain, and they should be complicated and like finicky to make a build, ideally. Sure, so you could nerf the damage, or you could make it harder to achieve these things, or make it locked behind, you know, something that's hard to get, like a rare item or whatever. But I think just removing it is depressing to me. And that's the kind of thing, when I log in and I see the thing that made me inspired to want to make a build, like my POE1 build, that my Blazing Salvo like nonsense build that I posted on this channel, the amount of interesting interactions that existed in POE1 allowed me to create that build, because one piece of it made me inspired to think about what else can interact with this. And that chain kept happening over and over and over again until I made a pretty cool build. If you watch the video, it had some issues, but still, if you just fully remove it, which some things need to be fully removed, I'll grant, but if you just fully remove all these things that make people excited, which in my opinion, the lifeblood of PoE is the concept that in this game, there's this huge level of complexity, and you can kind of create a character that does so many different things, that is highly complicated, that has all of these different scaling factors, that has, you know, all of these different things combining to make it work and to make it really strong. And I think that's what's interesting. And especially if you can create something cool like a cast loop engine or something like that. Or like, oh, this character has essentially like infinite sustain. Things like that, sure, they can wait a while, right? We don't need those in POE2 yet. Fine. But I think if you lack too much of that and you put too many kind of hard limits in the game, where it says you literally cannot proc this unless an enemy hits you, it's like, okay, well, this is just boring now, like compared to what it was sold as originally. Or they make cast on ignite, and then you try to use cast on ignite in a generic sense, and it's been nerfed so hard because of the abuse cases that you ignite something and it literally doesn't give you any percent at all of energy to get to a cast or whatever. Where's his ads? I need to summon these guys. So I do think you need some level of, you need like build fantasy in ARPGs in general, but I think POE1 was the ultimate expression of build fantasy. I'm going to make a character who teleports around and auto casts all this shit and is basically vomiting out colors and clearing the screen, right? And again, it doesn't have to be Exodia in this game yet, but there needs to be fantasy. There needs to be the fantasy of, I'm going to create this sick interaction. Oh, this works, hell yeah. If you just rip all those interactions out, root and stem, then, you know, there might not be anything left, and then people might legit not want to log in. And that's a little bit how I feel about the demon form changes. I don't want to pick demon form ever in this state. It's just, it takes away your weapon slot, and you nerfed the mobility, and you made it so like it's basically impossible to get probably pretty high demon stacks now. It's like, I don't know. You probably can get pretty high demon stacks, but it's like, do I want to even bother? You know, I feel like the nerfing the mobility is just a kick in the dick on that one. Maybe I'll go Spectres with this, since Spectres is new. my mana. Another thing, it seems like there's always a problem with every archetype. Like, I would have been down to just build grenades again. I went with, what is it, Witch Hunter Grenades is one of my characters last time. And grenades were cool. And it was definitely not OP or anything. It was like okay. But the issue is the best way to get damage was to increase your gem level, so you get a crossbow with like +4 or something. And what everybody figured out pretty quickly is, oh, my grenade costs like 900 mana. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but it'd be like 300, 400, and I'll run out of mana in like 5 grenade casts. That just seems wrong, especially when a lot of the grenades are elemental and are incentivizing you to, you know, convert your what physical you do have into more elemental. And then you can't get leech, right? You can't really get that much mana leech with a lot of the grenades. So you're kind of in this weird position where it didn't seem like there was much of a way to solve mana. So what, you just run around chugging your one forced mana flask that you, right? And it's like, I don't know. I think mana management should be a thing. But I don't think it's an interesting way to manage your mana when you're essentially like, I can do 1 round of spells and then I drink. And then I do 1 round of spells and then I drink. That's just annoying. And there are games where I think mana management is more interesting. I think in POE1 it's more interesting, for example, to just be able to solve mana in some way. And if they don't want it to be the case that you can solve mana, I think that's fine. They can make that decision. Oh my god, I need int. They can make that decision, but then if that is the decision they make, then I would say they should probably make it such that there's a way to play your build properly where you kind of don't go and then a way where if you want to have like a high burst window, then you do go similar to if you've played World of Warcraft, Arcane Mage would work like this in a lot of expansions where you kind of go when you go all out and you go crazy, you pop off, you use everything and you do high DPS, and then you're and then you'll regen, right? But in this game, it's kind of like you just scale your damage with really high gem levels, and now everything costs a fuck ton of mana, and you just go every time you do any round of spells, and then you chug. I think POE1's concept of you simply solve mana costs at some point is more interesting than that. And by no means do I think that makes POE2 bad. I think it's a great game. But there's just a lot of little things that I think are... they're just not the way that necessarily you want them. And, you know, maybe the vision will never be the way that I want it, right? And that's fine. What happened to my... my table? The fuck? Where I disassemble these boots or whatever. Whatever. Fucker. But yeah, I think that's kind of the general premise with the patch that I have an issue with, personally. Did they change this map? It's like backwards now. I'm so lost. Routes, impassable. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I think the angriness about the patch is somewhat warranted. But at the same time, I think some people are getting a little ahead of themselves, quitting super fast, getting whiny. And it's like, if you want to quit, you're not having fun, you know, that's up to you. But there's a certain level of performative, like, nature behind it at a certain point when people are like, I hate this, is the worst game ever. And it's coming from somebody who's played POE1 for like 15 years, or I don't even know if it's been out that long, but you get the point. It's like, no, you're just too invested and you're upset, right? And that's fine, but, you know, what you're saying is unreasonable. Because the thing that GGG is aiming for, a high level of customization and build scope and character diversity, plus meaningful combat, really hard to achieve, I think. By decree of the Count of Algum. Yes. I don't know if I'm gonna go Essence Drain Contagion or not. I did it last league, and that is one of the good things that they nerfed Archmage. I did Essence Drain Contagion Dark Effigy, and then I ended up going like Mana Stacker, which everything ended up going Mana Stacker, but I wanted to go what is it called, Impending Doom, and I was proccing good Impending Dooms on my curse, but then I tried Archmage and it basically like tripled my damage, which made me sad because then I was forced to use it essentially, and I didn't want to go another Archmage build. And at a certain point I was like, I might as well just be Archmage Spark, and it just made me sad. So nerfing things like that is good, where essentially every question leads you to the answer of why not. If you're a caster, why are you not Archmage? You know, I do think that was a huge issue. But again, there needs to be other methods of scaling your damage. What do I do at this point again? Oh yeah, I turned my quests off. Travel to Ogum Village. Dude, I feel so cheated. A lot of people have a bunch of skins, and none of the skins I have besides this one are available. I kind of don't like this one that much in this game either. It's alright. But I don't like how the Huntress looks. So, I guess I'll use this for now. I kind of wanted to try the new Warrior Ascendancy because it looks really strong defensively. It looks really good. It's kind of like Chieftain, and I loved Chieftain in POE1. It's one of my favorites. However, the thought of leveling with maces, even for a little bit, before I could swap to something else, hell no, dude. Even for a moment, I'm not touching mace skills. They are revolting. My fucking god. Oh my god. I was changing my volume. What does my shit sound like? I could see nerfing it, but just straight up Oh, it's super behind. Whatever. Alright. Dude, what is that skin? That is, I mean, skin pet, whatever that is, that's cool. But yeah, in short, I feel like we're lacking a little bit of fantasy right now. We need something to aim for, an interesting build that's not some pre-designed, like, you know, some combo that they thought of. I think that that's less interesting than creating your own stuff. God damn it. I don't have 16 inch, dude, really? Yeah, whatever. Huntress looks interesting once you get all, or what is it, the Ritualist? It looks pretty crazy. I think I can make a good character. I'll probably go Essence Drain in the campaign, and then I'm kind of thinking about going Spectres Detonate Dead, because I feel like guaranteed that I'll be able to do some damage, because some of the skills right now, I don't know how you'll scale them. Like, for instance, if you wanted to play Spark really bad right now, I don't know how you'd scale it. You'd probably still go Archmage, but it's like, you know, you need to be able to pop off at some point. Yeah, and demon form and all that other stuff just seems like more hoops to jump through than anything. Where I'll take this other ascendancy. I get another ring slot. That's crazy. I'll get all these things. Regen. I forget what else, but it looked good. I'll probably go Spectre Detonate Dead. And somebody will probably have figured out by then the best Spectre to go Detonate Dead with. And then they'll nerf it next league into the ground and make it pointless, and then we'll figure something else out. But for now, that's it.